The call came in at 3:17 a.m. on March 15, 2023. Detective Rivera had handled missing persons cases before, but this one was different. The woman on the other end of the line wasn't reporting a kidnapping or a runaway. She was reporting something far more sinister, the theft of a soul. "My husband has been stolen from me," Elena Torres whispered into the phone, her voice breaking. "Someone took him and left a stranger in his place. He looks like Benjamin, he sounds like Benjamin, but the man I married is gone." What happened in the Torres household over the next 4 months would challenge everything we understand about crime, punishment, and redemption. This is the story of a disappearance so complete that the victim and perpetrator were the same person. This is the story of a woman who refused to let her husband become another cold case. Phoenix, Arizona. Suburban paradise. White picket fence dreams turned nightmare. The Torres home at 2847 Maple Drive looked perfect from the outside. Manicured lawn, basketball hoop in the driveway, 2 cars in the garage. But inside these walls, a different story was unfolding. Elena Torres, 38, marketing executive and mother of 2, was living with a ghost. Benjamin Torres, 41, civil engineer and former church deacon, had committed the perfect crime. He had murdered his own presence while leaving his body behind. The evidence was everywhere, hidden in plain sight. Empty conversations over dinner, daughters doing homework alone while their father sat 3 feet away, lost in his phone. A marriage bed that had become a morgue of silence. Elena's journal entries read like witness statements from a crime scene. February 14, 2023, he forgot it was Valentine's Day. Not just the dinner, he forgot I existed. But here's what made this case so baffling. There was no smoking gun, no affair, no addiction, no financial ruin, just the slow, methodical execution of intimacy. Benjamin Torres had become a master criminal, stealing moments, memories, and meaning from his own family without leaving a single fingerprint. Elena's sister Rosa was the first to notice the disappearance. At a family barbecue in 2021, she watched Benjamin sit among his loved ones like a man attending his own funeral, present but not participating, breathing but not living. It was like watching someone die in slow motion. Rosa would later testify. Elena kept making excuses. Work stress, midlife crisis, pandemic fatigue. But I could see it in her eyes. She was already grieving. The evidence mounted systematically. School events attended by Elena alone. Weekend family activities where Benjamin was physically present but emotionally absent. Text message exchanges between husband and wife that read like grocery lists, devoid of warmth, humor, or life. Phone records revealed the mathematical precision of emotional murder. In 2018, Benjamin and Elena exchanged an average of 47 text messages per day, filled with inside jokes and daily affections. By 2023, that number had dropped to 6.2 messages per day, consisting entirely of logistics. Pick up milk, working late, kids need lunch money. But the most damning evidence came from Benjamin himself. Elena discovered a notebook in his desk drawer. Not hidden, just forgotten like everything else in his life. The entries were sporadic but devastating. January 15, 2023. Feel like I'm sleepwalking through my own life. Elena keeps trying to wake me up, but I don't know how to tell her I don't want to be awake. Being numb is easier than feeling how disappointed I am in everything, including myself. This wasn't a man who had stopped loving his wife. This was a man who had stopped loving himself. And that realization would crack the case wide open. Every great investigation has a moment when everything changes. For Elena Torres, that moment came in her mother's kitchen on February 20th, 2023. Carmen Velasquez, 78 years old and built like a prayer warrior, listened to her daughter's confession. Elena was ready to give up, ready to file for divorce, ready to declare Benjamin Torres legally dead to their marriage. But Carmen had a different theory about the crime that had been committed. What if Benjamin hadn't chosen to disappear? What if he had been taken by something deeper, darker, by forces that convinced him isolation was safer than intimacy? "You're investigating the wrong suspect," Carmen told her daughter. "The enemy isn't your husband. The enemy is whatever convinced him that he's not worth loving." Carmen proposed something unprecedented in the annals of criminal investigation, a spiritual stakeout. For 90 days, Elena would stop trying to solve Benjamin's behavior and start investigating his heart. Not through interrogation or confrontation, but through prayer. Elena agreed to try the most counterintuitive investigation of her life. What Elena did next would make any detective proud. She transformed her walk-in closet into a command center, documenting evidence that couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Every morning at 5 a.m., she entered that closet with 3 tools: her journal, her Bible, and a list of targeted interventions for Benjamin's soul. But here's what made her approach revolutionary. She wasn't praying for Benjamin to change his behavior. She was conducting surveillance on his heart, investigating wounds she couldn't see, gathering intelligence on a man's war with himself. Day 1. Praying that Benjamin remembers what hope feels like. Day 7. Praying for healing of emotional wounds I don't even know about. Day 14. Praying for Benjamin to have compassion for himself. Elena's documentation revealed the sophisticated psychology of her approach. Instead of focusing on Benjamin's crimes against the family, she was investigating Benjamin's crimes against himself. She was essentially conducting a long-distance intervention on her husband's soul. But the most compelling evidence came in what Elena called anomaly reports. Instances where Benjamin's behavior broke pattern. Day 18. Benjamin made coffee for both of us. First time in 8 months. Day 23. He asked Sophia about her art project. Actually listened. Day 31. Found him reading instead of staring at his phone. Were these coincidences, or was Elena's unconventional investigation yielding results? Day 47. The breakthrough came not with dramatic revelation, but with quiet surrender. Elena returned home to find Benjamin sitting at their kitchen table with a legal pad covered in writing, the first voluntary communication he had initiated in months. "I've been thinking about us," he said without looking up. "Actually, I've been thinking about me, and I realize I've been lying to both of us for a long time." What Benjamin revealed that evening would reframe the entire case. He hadn't stopped loving Elena. He had stopped believing he was worthy of being loved. Years of accumulated failures, disappointments, and self-judgments had convinced him that the best thing he could do for his family was become invisible. "I thought if I took up less emotional space, if I needed less from you, it would be easier for everyone," Benjamin confessed. "I was trying to protect you from how broken I felt inside." The irony was devastating. Benjamin's attempt to protect his family by withdrawing had nearly destroyed it. He had committed emotional suicide, thinking it was self-sacrifice. And Elena's decision to stop prosecuting Benjamin and start advocating for his healing had somehow given him permission to acknowledge his brokenness. But the confession wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of the most difficult part of any investigation, proving that change is possible. Day 63. Just when it seemed the case was solved, Benjamin suffered what can only be described as an emotional relapse. The stress of vulnerability combined with a difficult week at work sent him retreating back into his familiar prison of isolation. For 3 days, he barely spoke. Elena found him sleeping in the guest room, claiming he didn't want to disturb her. The old Benjamin, withdrawn, unreachable, functionally dead, had returned. Elena's journal entry from day 65 revealed her crisis of faith. "I thought we were past this. I thought prayer was working. But maybe I was just seeing what I wanted to see. Maybe some people are too broken to be saved, even by God." This was Elena's dark night of the soul, the moment when every investigator questions whether justice is possible, whether redemption is real, whether some cases are simply unsolvable. But her mother Carmen offered a different perspective. "Healing isn't a straight line, Mika. Sometimes people have to fall backward to remember why they wanted to move forward." The question remained, would Elena continue her investigation, or would she close the case as unsolvable? Day 71, Benjamin did something that shocked everyone, including himself. He confessed again, this time to the crime of reading Elena's prayer journal. He had found it open on her nightstand, and in a moment of curiosity that marked his first real engagement in months, he read her entries. What he discovered was 71 days of a woman fighting for his soul, when he had given up on it himself. "Do you know what it's like," Benjamin asked Elena, "to discover that your wife has been investigating your heart not to prosecute you, but to save you?" Benjamin's second confession revealed the complexity of his emotional disappearance. He described feeling like a disappointing character in his own life story, a man who had achieved external success but felt internally bankrupt. His distance from Elena wasn't rejection. It was shame so profound it had convinced him that invisibility was mercy. "I was trying to spare you from the man I had become," he told her, "but I realize now that I was also depriving you of the man I could still become." What followed was what Elena described as the slow crime of rebuilding. Unlike the dramatic transformations of movie endings, real healing is methodical, sometimes tedious, and always uncertain. Benjamin began his own version of Elena's investigation, but his approach was different. While Elena had conducted surveillance on his heart, Benjamin began gathering evidence of his own capacity for courage. Courage to be vulnerable, courage to be imperfect, courage to be present despite his fear of inadequacy. Day 85 of Elena's journal revealed the complexity of their reconstruction. Benjamin is trying, but trying isn't the same as succeeding. He still retreats when things get difficult. I still get angry when he retreats. We're both learning that love isn't just a feeling, it's a skill, and we're both out of practice. The Torres family began what they called crime scene reconstruction, revisiting moments when their connection had been damaged, and trying to understand how things had gone wrong. Not to assign blame, but to identify patterns that could be prevented. Their daughter Isabella became an unexpected witness to this process. It was weird watching my parents learn how to talk to each other again. Like watching adults learn to walk, lots of stumbling, but they kept trying. The most significant evidence of change came from an unlikely source. Benjamin's workplace. His supervisor noted that Benjamin had become more collaborative, more present in meetings, more willing to acknowledge mistakes and ask for help. Transformation, it seemed, wasn't just personal, it was radiating into every area of his life. Day 120. 4 months after Elena began her investigation, she made a discovery that changed everything. While cleaning old files, she found a letter Benjamin had written to her 3 years earlier but never sent. The letter was dated exactly 1 week before Benjamin's emotional disappearance had begun. In it, he described feeling overwhelmed by work pressures, inadequate as a father, and afraid that Elena deserved better than what he could provide. The letter ended with a chilling sentence. "I think the best thing I can do for this family is become less of a burden on it." Elena realized she had been investigating the wrong crime. She had been trying to solve the mystery of Benjamin's withdrawal when the real crime was Benjamin's belief that his family would be better off without his full presence. His emotional disappearance wasn't abandonment. It was what he believed was sacrifice. This revelation reframed their entire story. Benjamin hadn't stopped loving his family. He had started believing a lie about his worth to them. And Elena's prayers had somehow given Benjamin permission to question that lie. But the letter also raised disturbing questions that extend far beyond one marriage. How many other families are living with emotionally missing persons? How many marriages are crime scenes where love died not from dramatic betrayal, but from the slow suffocation of shame? Today, 18 months after Elena Torres made that desperate phone call to the universe, the Torres case remains officially open, not because it was unsolved, but because healing is an ongoing investigation. Elena still maintains her prayer closet, though she now calls it her evidence room, a place where she gathers daily proof of grace, redemption, and the possibility of human transformation. Benjamin has started his own journal, documenting what he calls signs of life, moments when he chooses connection over withdrawal, vulnerability over self-protection. Their daughters have become inadvertent students of emotional intelligence, watching their parents navigate conflict, forgiveness, and the daily choice to show up for each other, despite imperfections. But perhaps the most compelling evidence that the Torres case cracks something larger comes from its replication. Elena has shared her investigative methods with other women facing similar disappearances, and many report similar results. Maria Santos, in Denver, 6 weeks of praying for my husband's healing, instead of demanding his attention, and he started talking to me again. Jennifer Walsh in Atlanta, I thought prayer was passive, but it was the most active investigation I ever conducted. Rebecca Chen in Seattle, when I stopped trying to solve my husband and started asking for his heart to be healed, he began solving himself. The Torres case challenges our understanding of what constitutes criminal behavior in relationships. Is emotional withdrawal a crime against the family? Is giving up on yourself a form of theft from those who love you? And conversely, is fighting for someone's soul through prayer a form of intervention or manipulation dressed in spiritual language? After months of investigation, I'm left with more questions than answers. What I can tell you is this. Elena Torres committed herself to believing in her husband's capacity for change when he had stopped believing in it himself. Whether that belief was answered by divine intervention or sophisticated psychology, the result was the same. A man remembered who he used to be and decided to become who he could still be. Benjamin Torres committed the crime of disappearing from his own life while still living in it. His sentence was self-imposed isolation. His parole came through the relentless advocacy of a wife who refused to let him become another cold case. The Torres investigation proves that sometimes the most radical thing you can do for someone who has disappeared emotionally is not to chase them, but to create a safe space for them to return to themselves. Sometimes the most powerful surveillance you can conduct is not into someone's behavior, but into their heart. Elena Torres discovered that prayer can be a form of detective work, seeking clues to someone's true self, gathering evidence of their capacity for love, and believing in solutions that can't be seen with conventional methods. Love, it turns out, is both the crime and the cure, the evidence and the verdict, the mystery and the solution. The case remains open because the investigation continues. Every day, Elena and Benjamin Torres choose to show up for the ongoing work of being found by each other. Every day, they gather new evidence that redemption is real, that people can change, and that sometimes the most important missing person is the one sleeping next to you. This is the story of the Torres family, a true crime story where the greatest mystery wasn't who committed the crime, but whether love is strong enough to solve it. The evidence suggests it is,